Okay, so good morning. Today's daf is Mem Gimel, and we got to the Mishnah, four after four words of the Gemara on the top of Mem Gimel with Aleph. This is a nice series of 3 days in which the beginning will begin with a Mishnah. So we began yesterday with a Mishnah, and let's dive right into it, and we'll begin today with the Mishnah. So I'm going to share my screen, and here we go. Here we're going to get started. The Mishnah distinguishes between, again, as we mentioned yesterday, at the end of the day yesterday, there's certain watchers who are allowed to use the item that they're watching. And Stan highlighted as he walked out the door yesterday that the money changers are the ones that we're going to be talking about. So the Mishnah is going to distinguish between money changers, regular people, and storekeepers. So let's take a look and see how it does so. So a mafkid mo's etzel shulchani. You put your money with a shulchani. Obviously, it comes from the word shulchan, a table, but basically their business is all around the table. They take in money and they change it for various other currencies. And clearly, the main currency we're talking about, where you have the main currency that is relevant here. So if you have the main currency in this particular country and you give your money to a shulchani, to a money changer in order to watch. So then, im trurin, if you give it to them tied up, so then lo yishtamish behen, they're not allowed to use it. Lefikach im avdu eno chayabach yusan, and therefore, if it gets lost, meaning we're assuming that we're clearly dealing with a shomer chinam here, somebody who is an unpaid watcher. And so as a result, they're not responsible for loss or theft. They're not responsible for they're not responsible for taking care of it. And therefore, but mutarin, if in fact it's untied, and so it's loose money, well, then you're clearly indicating a willingness, yishtamish ben, that the money changer can use it. And therefore, if it gets lost, then you're obligated to take care of it. You're obligated to for the loss that's associated with it. So that's category number one. Eitzel bal habayis. On the other hand, and at the other extreme, if you give it to just a regular guy, you give it to me, who's not a money changer. Bain trurin, bain mutarin. Doesn't make a difference how you give it to me. You could give it to me in $1 bills, all packed up with no rubber band around it. Lo yishtamish ben. I am not allowed to use that money. And therefore, if it's lost, I am a shomer chinam. I am not a shomer sucker. I'm not a shoel. I'm not a borrower or a paid watcher. So as a result, I'm not going to be responsible if anything happens to it. Oh, we have another last category, the middle category. So what if it's the middle category? So Chen b'nei kivala bias divrei Rebbe Meir. Rebbe Meir says, you know what? A storekeeper who does business and therefore sometimes will need cash. He's like, but he's also doesn't need cash. He doesn't deal in cash. So according to Rebbe Meir, he's more like an individual. Whereas Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Chen v'nei kishulchani. No, this storekeeper needs cash to be able to exchange, give change. So he's more like a money changer. So those are the two opinions that we have in our Mishnah on that third category. So now we go back to the first category and we ask the following question. Why does tying up the money make a difference? Because Mishum detzrurin lo yishtamish behen. One second, just because it's tied up, you shouldn't be able to use it. Let's take a look at Rashi. Rashi helps us out here. So Mishum detzrurin lo yishtamish behen. Bitmiya. This is a question that the Gemara is asking. Umagili das yesh kan. What kind of revelation of the person's intention is there here? That it somehow indicates that the person does not want the person to use it. After you tell me that once it's untied, you can use it. So once you tell me that when you give the money to a money changer, you know that he needs it. You know that he's going to want to use it. So now, if you give it to him untied, it's going to be clear that he can use it. So the derek kol adam ma'osav. Everybody wraps it. I mean, if you think about it, right? If you ask, if you imagine your hand in your head, especially in modern money situation, a pile of bills. You know, they could be 20s, they could be hundreds, whatever. You almost always imagine it with some kind of wrapper around it. That's how it gets delivered. So you know, people have been wrapping their money for millennia. So how in the world could you say that the fact that it's wrapped somehow indicates that you don't want the person to use it? Everybody wraps their money. So that can't be. So as a result, we give two different answers. Amar of Asi, Amar of Yehuda. So Rav Asi says in the name of Yehuda, Shanu. We're not just talking about where it's wrapped, but there was a signature. There was a seal on it. It's sort of like if you get maker's mark, right? The alcohol. So they have the maker's mark on the wax, the melted wax on the thing. That's what we're talking about. It's not simple, a regular tie, but it's clear by the nature of the tie that it was an indication that it was intended to be left sealed. Rav Mari Amar Bekesher Mishuna. Rav Mari says it could even be a strange kind of knot. So rather than a regular slip knot, they did a noose. They tied it up with a noose, and they're as like a hint that if you use my money, I'm gonna hang you. And so as a result, maybe that's what we're talking about. Ikadamri, there are some who say that actually Rav Mari wasn't expounding a law; he was asking a question. And Rav Mari was asking, Kesher Mishunamai, what is the law associated with an unusual knot? And the answer was Teku. We don't know the answer to it. It is unresolved. Okay, so Mutar and Ishtamish Behen. So we said that if the money is loose, you're allowed to use it. So Amar Huna Ba'afilu Nensu. So the question is, what is your liability? And so Rav Huna says, you are liable if you have the ability to use it, even if it was something totally unavoidable. You know, literally, lightning comes, strikes the table, and blows up the money. You know, you are going to be liable. One second, though, but our Mishnah said the word loss. Loss is a greater sense of fault than an unus, than something that is than an unavoidable accident. So Rabbah, no, when we said lost, we meant the way Rabbah explains lost. Dama Rabbah, because Rabbah said in connection with a different Mishnah, Nignavu, when it means theft, it doesn't mean in that particular Mishnah a regular case of theft, but rather Balistin Mizuyan. It meant armed robbers. Armed robbers are like a unavoidable loss. There's nothing you can do about armed robbers. We don't expect you to either give up your life or to fight them. So Avdu Shetava, and Avdu, when we say lost, what do we mean? Shetava Svinas Obiyam. We mean that the ship sank. That kind of loss. Again, that's not, I can't remember where I put them, so they're lost. That is the kind of loss of an unavoidable accident. So that's what we mean, and that's how Rav Huna is going to understand our Mishnah. Okay, so for Rav Nachman Amar, but Rav Nachman disagrees with Rav Huna. Rav Nachman says that no, the money changer is not going to be liable. And Sulo, he's not liable for an unavoidable accident. Okay, so now let's do some Rashis here, two Rashis, because it's important to understand. So Rashi first, Afilu Nensu, second line, narrow lines of Rashi, top of Mem Gimel Amud. But I feel that even if it was when our Mishnah said that you're liable, it's even if it's an unavoidable accident. Kamar mesnisen, dechayet ba'achriyusin. When our Mishnah said that you were obligated in the loss, it meant even if it was an unavoidable loss. And this is key words that Rashi is explaining, and this is true even if you never used it. And we saw this actually earlier in the Gemara. Because even though the money changer never actually got to your pile of money, when the lightning came down and struck it, and now it's completely gone. So even though that's what happened, since he had the right to use it immediately as you gave it to him, it is as if he began borrowing it then. Okay, and so therefore he's liable immediately. And when Rav Nachman says nensu lo, what does it mean? Next Rashi, kolzman shalom nishtamish, as long as he has not yet begun to use it and begun to borrow it, lo havi shoel, he is not considered a borrower. Ella avdu, and when our Mishnah says avdu, that it was lost, dafka, it means specifically lost in a negligent kind of way, in a maybe not fully negligent, not a egregious case, but in a case where a person shouldn't have lost it. And chayiv kishomer sachar, and you're obligated because you're like a paid watcher. So now we're going to try to understand, why does Rav Nachman treat this guy like a paid watcher? He hasn't used the money yet, so he hasn't gotten any benefit. So Amrle Rabba Rav Nachman. So Rabba asked Rav Nachman that exact question. Amrat Nensu lo, that you're the one who says that you're not liable for an accident. Alma, that seems to show lo habi shoalayu. You are clearly not yet a borrower. So ishoa lo habi. But if you're not a borrower, shomer sachar nami lo habi. What benefit have you gotten? You shouldn't be considered a shomer sachar either. So Amar Lei Rav Nachman explains, Bahomodinala. Listen, I will agree with you that this person is not, that this person is, this. I say, you know what? Let's take a look at Rashi. Rashi will help us here because the wording is a little tricky. Bahomodina. This is what I'm going to agree with. Amina, that I will tell you, lo havisha, well, that he's not a borrower. So yes, you are right. He is not a borrower. Mehashta, from right now, until he actually goes ahead and uses it. During that window, he's not a borrower. But Modina, but I do agree, the Shomer Sachar Habi. He is considered already like a Shomer Sachar, like a paid watcher. Why? So Rashi tell Gemara, go back to the Gemara. Dahowil Venena Mihana, because he can derive benefit from right now. With that benefit, the fact that he has the ability to use the money immediately, because now if some kind of purchase were to come his way, he could buy it immediately. Hava alayu shomer sachar. So the right to write the check, to give that money and to use it and to borrow it right now, even though it hasn't yet been borrowed, it results in the person being like a paid watcher.
If we ask the question, why is he giving the money to the shulchani? I mean, why is he depositing the money with him? And if you consider a shomer shachar, you might say, well, then shomer, like a shomer shachar, you pay the shomer shachar, right? So if he's giving him money, why would he have to pay him to hold the money?
No. So let's back up a couple things. Clearly, there's no money exchanging hands for any of the three people in our Mishnah, because we're definitely talking about one category of watcher throughout. So there's no, and we're talking about an unpaid watcher. Now, why would you give money to a shulchani? Because who else would you give the money to? That's the person who has a lot of money to be watched. he is likely already hired armed guards to stand outside his door and make sure that nobody comes in and robs him. He is probably the safest person to leave your money with. And so, I mean, he's essentially like a bank of the times. Now, you don't get paid interest because we don't have interest. We don't do ribis among Jewish people. So as a result, there won't be any interest that you can earn. But this is essentially the deal. The deal is if I leave my money with a shulchani, then if I leave my money and I leave it all set aside, he's like a shomer chinam, and he'll watch it because he knows that when I have money that I don't mind him borrowing, I'll let him borrow it because essentially the deal is the following. It's a great deal. If I don't want him, I take more risk if I leave him as a shomer chinam, and I take less risk if I let him actually use my money. So I get that benefit. It's a reasonable deal that the person would do. So that's what we're talking about here. So it's again the quote unquote payment that makes the shulchani a shomer sachar according to Rav Nachman is the fact that he has the potential to use the money, the potential to borrow. That potential doesn't quite put him into the category of borrower, but it is enough to put him into the category of shomer sachar.
We'll eventually, as we go on, discuss the money changer takes the money. He makes a bad investment with it, thinking he's going to make a profit. You come back and say, I want my original money. He says, no, I lost some of it.
So we have effectively in our Mishnah answered that, which is that he's liable even if lightning were to strike. So for sure he's going to be liable in that case. Okay. So you absolutely have a claim. Correct. Correct. The bottom line is the more rights he has to use your money, the more liability that's associated with it. If he's borrowing it, he has the rights of a borrower, and a borrower we've seen is liable even for total accidents. It's only when that animal drops dead while you're working it that we say that you're not liable. So it's an incredibly narrow exception to when you won't be liable if you're a borrower. On the other hand, if you're a paid watcher, so then a paid watcher is not liable for an ones, for something that's completely unavoidable. They are liable for theft, ordinary theft, and ordinary cases of losing the item, and certainly any negligence. And then you have the unpaid watcher, who's only going to be obligated in cases of real material negligence. It's not enough to have lost it. Now, if you say, I have no idea where I put it, we saw already that is considered a case of negligence. Okay, so now Rav Nachman goes back and we challenge Rav Nachman, and Rav Nachman has explained his approach, and now Rav Nachman asks Rav Huna essentially to challenge Rav Huna. So Eisvei Rav Nachman the Rav Huna, Rav Nachman challenges Rav Huna. We have a Mishnah that says Hamavkin Mos Eitzel Shulchani. Now this Mishnah, you need to know the context of it. The Mishnah is in Me'ila. Me'ila is the halachot associated with accidentally using the property of the Beit Mikdash. Sorry?
Of Hektish.
Of Hektish, exactly. The property of the Beit Mikdash of Hektish. And so here we're talking about money that belonged to the Hektish that was put the treasurer of the Beit Mikdash came and left money with the money changer, and he forgot to tell him, by the way, this is money of the Beit Mikdash, and therefore it is hektish, and you cannot use it. So im trorin, and now the money changer went ahead and used it. Im trorin, if the money was all tied up, so the money changer was not supposed to use it. Lo yishtamish ben, the money changer is not allowed to use it. Lefikach im hotzi, therefore, if he does use it, lo ma'al gizbar, the treasurer isn't guilty of me'ila. But be'imutarin, if it was loose and yishtamish behen and the money changer used it, lefikach imhotzi mal hagizbar. If the money changer used it and spent the money, well then the treasurer is going to be guilty of Mila. Now note who is responsible. The treasurer is responsible. This is one of the few cases of where you can do an action and I'll be liable for the sin. Okay, and so as a result, even though the money changer spent the money, because it was clearly that was my intention, because I gave him the money loose, and I'm the treasurer of the Beis Hamikdash, then that's my fault. I shouldn't have done that. So as a result, he's like my agent, and in this one instance, we'll say that an agent can violate the Torah on your behalf. But what case is he not liable? What happens if I left it with the money changer loose? So the money changer had the right to use it, but had not gone ahead and used it. Now, according to you, Rav Huna, but if you tell me that even before the money changer uses the money, he's liable for an ones, for unavoidable events, but that means you're treating him as if he already borrowed the money. So my area hotzi, why is the Mishnah saying that the money changer has to actually use the money? He's already borrowed the money. As soon as it comes into his possession loose, he's become the borrower and he's become a user of it, and he's become fully liable associated with it, according to you, Rav Huna. So as a result, he should already have been guilty of Me'ila, even if he didn't spend the money. So Amar Leh explains Huadin. Yes, you're actually right. Even if the money, once the money has gone to the money changer and it's been loose, he doesn't actually have to use it. As soon as it's been given to him, he's guilty. The money changer, the treasurer is guilty of Me'ila because he gave it to him in a way that it encourages him to use it. And so as a result, and Aval got the low hotzi, even though the money changer didn't actually use it. But I need to tana Resha hotzi. And the reason that we are talking about this is because in the first case, when I gave it to the money changer all tied up, then there's no Me'ila until the money changer unties it and takes it and uses it. Because when I gave it to him all tied up, he wasn't supposed to use it. And so only by untying it did he become liable for using it. So that's why in that case, we have to specifically, in that ratio of the Mishnah, we have to specifically reference Hotzi, spending the money. So that's why, in order to have parallel language in that Mishnah over there in Me'ila, that's why we also have here in the second case of that Mishnah also a reference to Hotzi. But really, it's true even if the money did not get spent. Okay, so that finishes the Mishnah, and the next Mishnah addresses someone who uses the watch item without permission. So let's see that case. And we actually saw this, I think, earlier in the Gemara. Hasholech yad b'pikadon. If you have somebody who uses something that they weren't supposed, that they were given to watch, Beishamai omrim yilka b'chaser uviyaser. You're going to suffer. The user is going to suffer based on the value of whether it goes up in value or down in value. So what does that mean? So let's take a look at Rashi in the Mishnah. If it goes down in value, because it got cheaper in the marketplace, you have to pay the value of what it was worth when you began to use it, when you took it. Meaning, if I'm watching your computer and it's worth $1,000 when you give it to me, and now it goes up to $1,100, and I now use it. I'm not supposed to use it. I'm supposed to just watch it. But now I use it. And then it goes down to worth $700. I suffer, and we look at when did I use it? What was the value when I used it? It was worth 1,100 when I used it, and so I have to pay you 1,100. All right, because that is the time of the theft. Kola goes London, and similarly, all thieves, Bishalman Kishah Hagazela, they pay based on the time of the theft. Ukagon Shahotzi, She'ena Be'ayin. It's like when you take it out, it's not in and not visible. Aval im yeshna be'ain and it's no longer around. I mean, we're talking about a situation where the computer, I can't just return it to you. But if it's still around, kamot shegozlov, and because the computer has not changed, omerlo, I'm allowed to say, harei shel chalafanecha. I can here's what is yours, it's before you. Kedamri and gabi matbeya, as we saw with respect to a coin, the nifsel truma v'nitmate, or if you or the truma and the coin became puzzle, the coin became eliminated, or truma v'nitmate, or truma and became tame. The paraka gozel kama, as we saw in Baba Kama near the end of Baba Kama in Daf Tzadik Baba Mabet. But yes, sir. What about if the value goes up? Im shasa biyadom mishishaleach ba'yad v'nisyakra. Now I take it and it was worth 700. And ba'achar hotzia loka biyeser demeha l'shalom kishas hotza. And so but I then I take it and it's worth 700.
Right.
And then it goes up and it's worth 1,000.
Right.
You know what? I don't know if you ever saw, I can't remember the name of the movie, but there's a movie where they take out the computers and they break it. And I get out my jollies on breaking your computer. But it was now worth, when I broke it into 1,000 pieces, it was worth $1,000. Well, guess what? You got lucky, because even though the moment of my theft it was only worth 700, because that was when I picked it up. Because when I broke it into 1,000 pieces, it was worth $1,000. I have to pay you $1,000. Okay, so that's Beis Shammai's opinion. Now, Beis Hillel says, Kishas Otza. It's based on the time of the going out, of the removal. What does that mean? Rashi tells us, the Gemara is going to explain. Rabbi Akiva Omer B'Shas HaTviyah. Rabbi Akiva says, no, it's based on the time of the claim. That when Kishas, as Rashi says, Kishas Yishit Bo Ladin, when you bring me to court, but Gemara Mefarsh time, and the Gemara is going to explain the reasoning. Okay, so let's take a look. So
if the object goes up and down in the market, someone leaves an object and he goes up, and how do we know when he actually used it or didn't use it, or he got lost or so forth? He gave it to person A, gave it to person B at time X, and then goes up and down. The market value can go up and down.
Excellent point. We are going to get to that question at the very end of today's daf. So excellent. So Amar Rabba, let's take a look and we'll get there. So Amar Rabba, hi man de Bazel Chavisa de Chamra. We're now going to have a case of somebody who stole wine from somebody, and we're going to have a case of classic theft. This is sort of like setting the table for us of a classic theft, and the value changes. If you steal some wine from somebody, Mikar Shavya Zuz, and it was originally worth 1 when you stole it, Hashta Shavya Arba, and now it's worth 4, Tavra Ushasya, and now you broke the thing, or you drank the wine, you broke the keg, and so it fell, all the wine got lost. Mishalam Arba, you have to pay the current value. It went up in value, it's worth 4 now. So Itbar Mamil, on the other hand, if the jug just broke on its own, Mishalam Zuza, then you pay the 1 zuz, which was the value when you stole it. My timer. What's the reason for all of this? Kavan de Isa, because if it was still around that barrel, Hadra Lamara Beina, you'd be able to give it back as it is. Hahi Shaita de Kashasile, when you now drink it, de Kabtaverla, or you break it, Kagazel Mine, it's as if you stole it right this second. Utnan, and we learned Kol Hagazlan and Mishalim B'Shas Hagazewa. It's as if you effectively stole it right now, because you could have returned it to him in its current form. You broke it. You can't possibly do that anymore. When was the moment that you could no longer do it? It's right now. Now's the moment of theft. But if in fact it broke on its own, Mishalem Zuzah, you pay one Zuz my taima, Hashda lo avidla, lo below midi. You didn't do anything at this moment when it went up in value. Amai kamachayev law. Why are you chayev to him? The only reason that you're obligated to the guy in the first place is because of the moment that you stole it. And at that moment, it was only worth one. So at that time it was worth only one. So that sets the table for us. And now we're going to try, and again, this is Rabbah saying this, he's an Amora. We're going to now try and understand what is Beit Hillel talking about when he says Kishas Hotzah, that you focus on the time of the leaving. We're going to have 5 different explanations. Only the 5th and final one is going to be the right one. So let's take a look. We're going to go through them and get there. So Tanan, Beit Hillel Omrim Kishas Hotzah, you pay at the time of the removal. My Kishas Hotzah, what in the world does the time of the removal mean? So if you say when it gets destroyed from this world, so uvamai, are we talking about the going up in value or going down in value? There, if you're going to tell me that we focus on the moment of it being destroyed and when it went down in value, Amar, could there possibly be anybody who says that if, in fact, I steal it from you when it was worth 1,000, and then it goes down to 700, and now I break it up and I make it so that I can't possibly return the computer, I'm only going to owe you $700? That's ridiculous. Nobody's going to say that. I stole it from you when it was worth 1,000. Of course, I have to pay you at least 1,000. Is there going to be anybody who says that? But Tanan, everybody has to pay based on the time of the theft. And the time of the theft was when it was worth 1,000. So now, maybe you're going to tell me it's when it was destroyed from the world and it's when it goes up in value. But that's what Beis Shammai says. Beis Shammai says that the right Beis Shammai says Yilka b'chaser or b'yaser, that if it goes up in value, the person who is the watcher is going to have to pay. So it can't be Beis Shammai. So because Beis Hillel is arguing. So we need a new explanation. Oh, we're going to say that. What does it mean, Hotzah? It means when you stole it. So now, okay, so you're going to tell me when you stole it. So what does that mean? It means that if it went up in value after you stole it, and now it's no longer around, you're going to pay the original value. After all, you stole it when it was worth 1,000. That's what you're going to pay. But Lema Rabbah, Amar Kabei Shammai. But we quoted Rabbah, who said that if you stole the barrel of wine and it went up in value, and now you broke it, you're going to have to pay the $4, not the $1. So that you're going to put Rabbah to be like Beit Shammai. That can't be. So now we're going to go back and understand. So Amralach Rava. So now we're going to go actually, even though it's not clear here in the Gemara, Rashi makes clear that actually what we're now going to say is we're going to talk about a situation where removal means it's destruction. So Amralach Rava will tell you biyaser, that what we're talking about is where it went up in value. And Kuli Amalo Pligi. No, nobody disagrees that in the case where it goes up in value, that you're going to pay based on the moment of destruction. Ki pligi, where do they argue? B'chluster, when it goes down in value. Beit Shammai sabri shlichus yad eina tzricha chisaron. Maybe what we'll say is that when is it that we say that a watcher is considered to have stolen and misappropriated an item. And according to Beit Shammai, you do not need to have any reduction in the value of that item. There's no need for usage of the item to be used up in order for the misappropriation to start. And so therefore, when the watcher takes my laptop, so I'll have given my laptop to a watcher, and now the watcher picks up my laptop because he's planning to use it. And he uses it. Well, there's no reduction in the value of my laptop as a result of his usage of it. It wasn't as if it's like a car that you drive out and such. So the point is is there's no but as a result, as soon as he picks it up, according to Beit Shammai, it's as if he's stolen it. And therefore, when it goes down in value, it went down in his possession. And so as a result, if it was originally worth 1,000 and now it's worth 700, he's going to owe me 1,000 because it went down in his possession. And Beit Hillel says no. Actually, in order for us to say that a watcher has taken something from the person who put it with him, it has to have been used up a little bit. There has to be some loss associated with it. And if he's just effectively borrowing it, that's not going to be enough for him to be considered to have taken possession of it as a thief. And so therefore, when it goes down in value, it goes down in the value of the original owner. And so as a result, that's why. But 1 second, Elahada Amar Rabba. But what about Rabba's comment? We saw Rabba say that in fact, this is all the way back on Mem Aleph Amabet. We saw that when a watcher shlichus yad eina tricha chisaron, Rabba told us that when you take the item, when a watcher takes the item, it doesn't have to trigger a loss. So Lema Rabba Da'amar Beit Shammai, are you telling me that Rabba is going to agree with Beit Shammai? Of course not. No Amora is going to agree with Beit Shammai because we all know that the halacha is like Beit Hillel. So here's the fourth case of what we're talking about. We're talking about a situation where the watcher moved the item to just fetch young pigeons. He didn't actually, imagine it was like a table and he went and stood on the table. There's no reduction in the value of the table as a result, assuming he doesn't break the table. So the point is that there's not, he just borrowed it. Is that considered theft? Is that considered misappropriation such that he would be liable? So he took it in order to go get some pigeons. So and what they're arguing about, what Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai are arguing about, is a case of borrowing without permission. Beit Shammai sabre sholo shelo midas gazlan habi. Beit Shammai says that a borrower who borrows without permission is considered a thief, and therefore, if it goes down in value, you're going to suffer because you already stole it. But if, on the other hand, and so when it goes down in value, it goes down in value in the possession of the thief. And so as a result, the thief is going to have to pay the original value. And Beit Hillel says, Shalomidas, he's just a borrower, and so as a result, when it goes down in value, it goes down in the value of when it's still in the possession of the owner. So Elahada Amar Rabba, but 1 second, there's another statement of Rabba that you're now going to effectively align with Beit Shammai, because Rabba says, Shol Shalomidas l'Rabbanan Gazlan Habi, that a borrower without permission is considered a thief. We're going to actually see this not for a little while. It's all the way back. It's all the way down in Bava Basra at the end of near the end of Bava Basra. Da Pei Zion Amabet. So we're not going to see that for a while. But the bottom line is that he says that a borrower without permission is considered a thief according to the rabbis. He's not going to assign the rabbis to Beit Shammai. Lema Rabba Damer to Beit Shammai. Again, you're going to try and tell me that Rabba says like Beit Shammai? Can't be. So therefore, finally, we get the fifth and final answer. Rather, we're talking about an appreciation in value, not in the marketplace, but due to some change in the item. So Beit Shammai Sabre Sheva Gazela de Nigzal Habi. The Beit Shammai believes that if the item gets improved because it gets fatter, it gets pregnant. The best example is it gets pregnant, and now it's pregnant, and so as a result, it belongs to the owner. If I'm the thief and I impregnate the animal, I enable the impregnation of the animal. I have to give back the animal as a pregnant animal, and I don't gain anything. I don't get paid for that. So, and because the Beit Shammai says that it belongs to the owner. No, if if even though I'm a thief, I stole the animal and now I had it impregnated, I am going to get paid for the work that I did. That value belongs to me. And really, the machlokas between Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel is like the following machlokas that we have in another brisa. Tanya, if you stole a ewe, gezaza, and you sheared it, the yalda, or it gave birth, mishalim otov es gezeruseha, that's vladoseha, that you have to return the animal and its fleece and its offspring. So Dibri Rebbe Meir, that's what Rebbe Meir says. So that's just like Rebbe Beit Shammai. And Rabbi Yehuda Omer, no, it goes back as it is. I give it back the way I stole it. I stole it without it. It goes back without it. So Dekanami. And actually, you can see for yourself that this may be, in fact, what the wording means. Tikatani, because what did we learn in our Mishnah? Beit Shammai Omrim, Yilka b'chaser u'b'yaser. When it goes down, when it decreases, or when it increases. And what Rashi tells us, if we take a look at Moda Dekanami, to begizos vivlados pligi, that they're arguing about the shearings and the children. Tikatani lashon chaser v'yeser, because we talked about something that's missing or something that's extra. Below katani lashon sol v'yoker, we didn't use the language of cheaper and more expensive. So it's clear that it's a change in the item itself, not just a change in the market price. And Beit Hillel Omer, and Beit Hillel says kashas otzah. It goes based on the time that it left. So the time that it was stolen. So Shema Mina, in fact, we learn it. So now we get to the third and final opinion in our Mishnah, and that was the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. And the Gemara is now going to offer us a series of halachic rulings before we get to the final ruling.
We're saying here that Beit Hillel says it's Keshat Hotza'ah. So, but Beit Hillel is saying
time
that
of the
if it
gazela. In the end, we end up going with the time of the gazela. It's the and you get paid back based on what you stole.
But we also said, didn't we also say that Beit Hillel held that if it goes down in value, that's considered as if it's in Vishat Amar, the owner's hand. So the owner, wouldn't necessarily be the time that it's stolen. If it goes down, the owner, it's his, so he loses.
It's important
because it decreased. Even though it decreased, he loses the value.
It's important to remember that all four of the previous answers are rejected. And so you're latching on to what part of one of the previous answers, and that answer has now been rejected. Each time we rejected the answers, we came up with a totally new answer, and all you should focus on, if you want to know exactly what we ended up saying, is you focus just on Elahacha b'sheva shel gzela kamifligi. That the argument is whether or not there's an increase in the value of the item. And so that is the machlokas. So Rabbi Akiva Omer b'shas hatzvi, and Rabbi Akiva said, and now we get to your question that you asked earlier: how do we know what it was worth at any particular time? So Rabbi Akiva says that we focus on the time of the claim, because of course we know what time that is. So Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, halakha Rabbi Akiva. The halakha is like Rabbi Akiva. Umoda Rabbi Akiva b'makom sheyesh eidim. But Rabbi Akiva will agree with Beit Hillel that if there are witnesses that tell us exactly when the item was misappropriated, then you would pay the value based on the time that it was misappropriated. So you're exactly right, Ken, to raise the question of how do we know what the value is? And that's what Rabbi Akiva is saying. We don't know what the value is. And so as a result, we have to go based on witnesses. And either we have witnesses because they come to court, and that's when he's liable, or we have witnesses because because there are witnesses that saw him misappropriated. So my taima, and what's the reason? To Amar Kra, because the Torah tells us la'asher hu lo yitnenu biyom hashmato, that you have to give it to the person who belongs to on the day of the guilt. So what is that day of the guilt? So according to Rabbi Akiva, according to this opinion, the day of the guilt is either when he goes to court, or when the witnesses see it, that's when he's effectively guilty. So, but that's not the only opinion, because Amre lay Rabbi Oshia Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Oshia asked Rabbi Yehuda, 1 second, Rabbi Ata Omer, did you really say this? Because listen, what Rabbi Asi said, Hachi Amar Rabbi Asi Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Asi said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Chaluk Haya Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva would even disagree. Even when there are witnesses, you still focus on the moment that you go to court. My time, and what's the reason that you focus on that? Because the Amr Krala Asher Hulodi again, same pasuk. Because when is the person truly guilty? That's you're only guilty when you actually go to court. So that's the two different versions of what Rabbi Akiva might say. Amar Rabbi Zera Rabbi Abba Bar Papa Ki Azlos Lahasam. So, having heard all of this discussion and this debate about what Rabbi Akiva actually held, so Rabbi Zera tells Rabbi Abba Bar Papa that when he goes to Eretz Yisrael, Akiva Sulama Tzor, go to Tzor, because and V'ol Legavei Rabbi Yaakov Bar Idi, and go ask Rabbi Yaakov Bar Idi, Ubaymine, and ask him, Ishamiya Le Rabbi Yochanan, have you heard from Rabbi Yochanan, who happened to be Rabbi Yaakov's teacher, Halakha Rabbi Akiva, ain't Halakha Rabbi Akiva? Was the halakha like Rabbi Akiva or not like Rabbi Akiva? And Amar Le, so Rabbi Yaakov Bar Idi says, when Rabbi Abba goes up to ask him, Hachi Amar Rabbi Yochanan, this is what Rabbi Yochanan said, Halakha Rabbi Akiva la'olam. The halakha is always like Rabbi Akiva. My la'olam, what do you mean always? Obviously, it's not always like Rabbi Akiva. It's not as if every time the halakha is like it, but meaning in this context. So Amar Rav Ashi, Shalom Tomar, so you shouldn't say, Hani Mili Heki Deleka Edim, that maybe we only like or only hold like Rabbi Akiva when there are no witnesses, Abal Heka Deika Edim Lo, but not when there are witnesses. So that could be one possible way to understand that the halakha is always like him. The inami, or alternatively, the ahadra leduchdad itabra, that it's talking about a situation where he returned it to its place and then it broke. And so that's what we're saying, that halakha is like Rabbi Akiva, la pugim into Rabbi Yishmael, and we're distinguishing from Rabbi Yishmael. The Amar lo be'inan das balam, because Rabbi Yishmael says that if I steal something from you and I put it back where I stole it from, I don't have to tell you. As long as I put it back the way I left it, I'm not going to be liable. But Rabbi Akiva says, no, I need to tell you that I am giving you back the item that I stole from you. And so, the Amr, the Kamash Balan, the Be'in and Das Balam. And so Rabbi Yochanan is teaching us that you actually need the knowledge of the victim. You need to tell the owner if you're going to return an item and no longer be liable. The Rabba Amar, but bottom line is, Rabba says halacha kabeis Hillel, that the halacha is like Beis Hillel. And if we take a look at the last Rashi before the Mishnah, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines up. The Rabba Amar halacha kabeis Hillel, Tishas Kzela, that it all focuses on the moment of theft. The Anan Kirabba Abdinan, and we of course follow Rabba. This is Rashi doesn't always tell us what the halacha is. Here he's telling us. Zahabale Basra, because he is the last of the authorities. And so as a result, we will follow the rule that what determines your liability, the moment of theft. So
what was the opinion of Rabbi Akiva again? I got lost a little bit.
The opinion of Rabbi Akiva is that it's when you take the person to court, that's when you're going to be liable.
Uh-huh.
And that's going to determine the valuation. It's the valuation at that moment that you're in court. That's how you determine what the value is.
And that's with Adam, because there was some discussion.
Well, no, if there was Adam, so then there was a machlokas within the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. Would he agree if there were Adam that said exactly when I stole it from you? If I was the watcher, if there were Adam that saw exactly when I picked it up in order to take it for my own possession, even if it only gets broken later or whatever, as soon as I pick it up, if there are witnesses according to that, so then there was a machlokas. Does Rabbi Akiva there in that situation agree with Beis Hillel and say that we focus on the moment of theft? Or does Rabbi Akiva say, even in that situation, the only moment that I'm going to determine my liability of how much I owe you is when you take me to court? That was a machlokas within the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. All right, so that brings us to the next Mishnah, which addresses whether one is liable for harm that befalls a watched object by simply announcing an intention to misappropriate the object. Meaning, again, I am watching your computer and I tell Moshe, listen, Moshe, I just have to tell because this computer, it looks amazing. I got to take it for myself. And I'm going to, is the moment that I have that intention, is that sufficient for me to now be liable? Now lightning comes and strikes the computer and blows it up. Am I liable for that? Or is that I'm an unpaid watcher? I'm not liable if lightning comes and strikes your computer. So that's the question. So for the answer and for the discussion associated with that, stay tuned to tomorrow's daf. Again, 3 days in a row, we get to begin with a Mishnah. Looking forward, exactly. Well, I don't know about tomorrow whether we'll end with a Mishnah, but we'll also finish this chapter of we're in the third chapter of Bava Metzia. We'll, God willing, finish the third chapter and begin the fourth chapter tomorrow as well. So looking forward to doing that.
Sorry, how do we know that if there are no Adam? How do we know when it was actually taken? Is the person Moda or is it?
Excellent point. We ran out of time, so I did not get a chance to do this Rashi. But Rashi notes that the case that we're talking about is the person admits to exactly when he stole it. So we're not, there's the case is a situation where I say I feel guilty. Now I stole Stan's computer. I feel guilty. I go to Stan and I say, listen, I stole, yes, you gave it to me to watch. I took it and yes, it got hit by lightning, but I had stolen it ahead of time. And so I am liable to you. And I tell him when I exactly stole it. And so that's when the moment of liability gets determined. So it's an admission that we're dealing with.
So then,
and as always, admission is considered like 1,000 witnesses.
But as we learned previously in Bava Kama, or even here, if a person, we make a distinction between Adam versus Hoda'ah. If a person's Moda, we maybe don't even need Adam, right?
That's true. You don't need Adam. I would be liable 100% if I admit it. So the point is that according, but because there were no witnesses, there's no argument to say that the witnesses triggered the liability. And so the question is, again, what everybody's what Beis Hillel and Rabbi Akiva are arguing about is the meaning of being guilty. Is guilt determined when a court says it, or when witnesses come and see it, or when you do the action? That's effectively the argument between Beit Hillel and Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva, according to one opinion, says it's got to be when the court says it, and that's it. According to another opinion, it's when the court says it or when there are witnesses. And according to Beit Hillel, according to Beit Hillel, it's when the person does it. When the person does it, that's when they become guilty. So that's, again, it's all understanding that verse in the Torah.
If a person is Moda, you don't need a court and you don't need witnesses.
Correct. That's that. You clearly in that argument, you're liking Beit Hillel's approach. All right. Have a wonderful day.